process. I gave our school board every school's needs and wants, things that they felt and what our maintenance folks needed. And I asked them to come tonight and do a presentation about what each school felt they needed to be successful academically and have all of their maintenance needs met. So we're going to do that first tonight. Then we're going to have our transportation, our maintenance supervisor, Shane Reed, to go over some maintenance needs that are in our division that we need to consider addressing. And then we're going to allow delegations to speak about their concerns. So, I'd like to let Miss Cynthia Morgan from Edgemont Primary School go first with the things that Edgemont Primary School has addressed as concerns, and you each had a copy of that in your budget notebook. So
may I make one other statement?
Yes.
I just wanted everyone to know, as we received the list, and we appreciated all the schools putting together their list, we did ask as a board, we wanted to hear from each individual that had presented that list to give us their priorities so that we could get a better sense for what they were looking for. So Ms. Morgan, thank you for coming tonight. If you would.
Good evening and happy School Board Appreciation Month. We at Edgemont Primary School, there was a list created, and like she said, you do have that list, but the top administrator request, and again it's from the faculty and staff. Faculty and staff pay increases is top of the list. Number one, pay increases. Number two, a junior kindergarten classroom or a transition kindergarten class. Depending on our numbers for this coming school year, we would like to start off the year with a transition kindergarten, and those are for, that class would be a classroom where we would have intense services for kindergartners that come to school that are 5 years old, that do not come kindergarten ready. And so we would give the DABRON 2 assessment, and which is a kindergarten readiness screener, and we would pinpoint the students that are kindergarten ready and those that are not. And then number 3, we would like a new copier, whether we lease it or whether we purchase one. A copier is well needed. So those are our top 3. But again, number 1 is for faculty and staff pay increases at the top of the list.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Morgan, for doing that this evening. So, Mr. Bennett from Jeter Watson, would you please do us a similar?
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak about our budget needs. I think you have mine in front of you as well. And to follow up with Mrs. Morgan, I too would like to see our faculty and staff get off this 7-year step freeze, salary freeze. I know there's been percentage increases done, but I would like to see our teachers and other personnel get to the proper place on their pay scale. When they were hired, they were told, if you're here this many years, this is what you can expect to make. And I'd like to see us get back and honor that commitment we made to them when they were hired. My number 1 request is a little different, and you all probably know this, but at Jeter Watson we have many different reading interventions going on right now, and the reason for that is about 28% of our student population needs a reading intervention. They are not reading on grade level. For example, in the 4th grade, I only have 68% of my 4th graders reading at a 4th grade level. 5th grade is at 61%, 6th grade is about 60%, and our 7th graders are at 71%. And we have been tasked with trying to correct this literacy issue before we send them to the high school. And Derek's going to be up here, and he has reading interventions for 8th and 9th graders. This is a copy of the data, and Derek kind of laughed at me when I came in with it, but this is a list of every student at Jeter Watson that is receiving a reading intervention. And in order to do that, it has really put a burden on our faculty. For example, Mr. Dan Fay is a special ed teacher. He's supposed to be assisting with special ed students in 4th and 5th grade, and he does. But the way we revamped our schedule, Mr. Fay also teaches an Orton-Gilliam class, which is a lower tier phonics course for those 4th and 5th graders. And also he does a program called RAS Kids, which helps 4th and 5th graders with comprehension so they can remember what they just read and respond to questions. It's not how well you read, but can you remember what you just read? Mrs. Barber, B.J. Barber, is our librarian, and we share her with Edgemont. Mrs. Barber does not get to be a librarian this year for Jeter Watson. We gave up our library, took out of exploratory. English teachers, such as Miss Arthur, has the schedule, and she takes her class to the library to check out books and do their reading, because Mrs. Barber is teaching a reading intervention class for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders. It's called I Aspire. In order to do that, we have to take 2 of our aides to cover a keyboarding lab or a writing lab because we sort of ran out of personnel in order to have that exploratory schedule where when we took library out, we had to put kids in other places, and we didn't have the teachers to cover that. Barbara Jefferson is a special education teacher in the 6th and 7th grade. She teaches an I Aspire reading intervention for 7th graders. And then one you may have heard quite a bit about, Miss Elena Lohman, is a 6th grade language arts teacher. In the morning, she teaches a fusion reading class, which is a tier 2. It's for those students that are at least at the 4th grade level. They're they're a year and a half behind where they need to be. She teaches a year 1 reading intervention for 6th graders, and she's now teaching a year 2 reading intervention for 7th graders. And our goal is we're going to try to catch these low readers or these weak readers before they get to the high school, so Mr. Cantrell doesn't have to have English teachers there doing reading interventions. Of course, Miss Morgan's goal is we would really love to catch them by the time they get to 3rd grade. So with the burden is put on the staff, and we've met that challenge, we're working hard on it. It would be really, really nice to have another reading teacher or a reading specialist to teach a couple of these reading intervention classes. Now, Miss Nee Johnson has been very creative, along with Dr. Furman. There is a good chance, and I know they're looking at it, where Edgemont gets Title I services through the 3rd grade. There's a chance where we may be able to extend those Title I, that federal money, to the 5th grade. Well, that would help out quite a bit. And talking with our Title I director, when we do that, maybe those federal funds could help pay for that teacher to teach them these reading classes, so I can get Mrs. Barber back in the library and put that back into our exploratory schedule. So it may not cost local or state money, it could be federal money.
That's correct.
So I wanted to bring that to your all's attention. My next request, I think, is on my sheet. This gentleman is here. This is Mr. Kit Stanton. He's our guidance counselor at Jeter Watson. Kit is my principal designee. He's also the principal designee for Mrs. Morgan at Edgemont. And of course, not only being a guidance counselor, he's also director of testing. With all this data and the test, and we have to, as soon as the SOLs are over with, we do a PALS reading test. And we have to look at our schedule for the following year and put kids where they need to be, rework their schedule. He is the power school guru when it comes to scheduling. Not only do I utilize him, but Mrs. Morgan utilizes him. And yes, Mr. Stanton gets to work 10 days after the school year. He comes to work 10 days before the school year. But the 2 of us would love to have him there 12 months, make him a 12-month employee. It's not that much more money, but it's just, we have to call him so much on his own time during the summer to get him to, to help us and answer questions, and he's been very gracious to come in on his own time occasionally. And my last request is very similar to Mrs. Morgan. Because when her copier goes down, they come over to Jeter and use ours. When ours goes down, they run over to Edgemont and they use theirs. So we could definitely use a copier too. Thank you all very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Mr. Cantrell from Covington High School, if you would give us some information about.
Ours as well.
Yes.
I'd like to start off by, thanking you all for giving us the opportunity to talk about this, and also happy School Board Appreciation Month. You guys do a lot of things we all appreciate. Hope you all know that. Start off salary. I think that's across the board with all of us. Our teachers and staff are strongly on to trying to improve our salary scales and get everybody to the step that they should be at, and that's the first concern I think that comes across at our school as well. Our first, as you look at mine, we kind of highlighted the areas that are kind of the ones that we feel that are the wants versus the needs. As Mr. Bennett talked about, the guidance counselor, that's kind of the top of mind with staffing as well. They do so much more that takes time over the summer. Ms. Dooley's always on call. She answers our questions throughout the summer. She helps with scheduling, transcript requests, gear up planning, testing, AP, and virtual Virginia. There's so much that goes into that position that would help us with that 12-month time as well. We also listed some other possibilities, but the schedule part could help some with that. Athletics and activities. One of the big things athletically that's been taken away from meeting with parents and students is we need some type of weight room program that can help our kids get bigger and stronger, and whether that be a stipend type position that coaches can fulfill with before or after school that could help all athletes, I think would be a good way with that. And we also looked to try the copy machine to go on point with them. That was another big issue with ours. They think that we could use something to help with copies so that we can, get the extra features that they offer with the new ones. We do have 2 that are unlimited, which is wonderful, but they're probably 15 years old or so. They do a good job, so that was also one of the other high items as well on our list. And we also hit on some other things, as you can see there, but that's the 3 big takeaways as well with ours.
Thank you, Mr. Cantrell.
Thank you.